When you are on a personal journey of self-growth, self-love, and even making better choices in life, I realize that it's very common for us to actually become isolated or lonely in that process and end up losing friends. Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Cleopatra, and today I want to talk about friendship. And I wanted to spend some time out in nature today and touch some grass and go outside and do some reflecting and share with you guys some reflections that I've been having about friendships in your 20s, growing out of your friendships, and specifically what it looks like when you are on a personal journey of self-growth, self-love, what it might look like in your life when people might be trying to sabotage that, and maybe some signs of just what it looks like when you have outgrown your close personal friendships. I recently found myself in this situation, having to end a friendship of 7 years, and it's something that was really difficult for me to accept, but I did learn a lot and grow a lot through that process. And I figured, since this space on YouTube has been a place for me to share my reflections, especially in regards to my own personal growth, I felt like that this would be a good outlet for me to really close that chapter out. So hopefully, as we go through this can be of some help to some other people who might find themselves in the same position, because this seems to be a common theme that I, as well as like a lot of my peers in our 20s, are trying to navigate and figure out. When you're in a period of growth, it often triggers people who aren't doing the same self-work in their own personal lives, and that can manifest sometimes in some really disturbing and distasteful ways sometimes. It's been a while since we've gotten personal on this channel, so I want to talk about the realities of trying to keep and make friends in your 20s and what it looks like when you've outgrown your old circles. And for the framework of this video, we're going to be using some advice and articles from real psychologists and some articles from Psychology Now to kind of back up what we're saying here. Like always, we're going to apply nuance and balance to the conversation, talk about how we ourselves can be more grounded people and better friends to ourselves and to the community that we hope to seek and find in the future, even if you are going through some friendship breakups or some transitions in your life like I am. This is definitely a video that's not going to have so many visual elements, so feel free to put it on in the background while you do some laundry, maybe cook some dinner, wash your dishes, things like that. So let's go ahead and get started. So I want to add some context just to kind of talk about where I'm coming from in this conversation. My entire life, I've always had to move around. Since I was young, I was always changing schools and moving to different neighborhoods. And I guess I followed that pattern into my adult life as well. If you look on my channel, I'm always moving around and always living in different places. Moving around all the time, though, deepened my perspective on community and got me into the practice of meeting new people and really having a lot of practice figuring out how to build a circle of friends. I haven't always been perfect at it, and I'm not perfect now, but I do know what it means to have people in your corner who want to see you win. That trait alone is something that can either build you up or ruin your life, and I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that. It's on you to take yourself seriously enough to care about surrounding yourself with the right people and being that supportive person yourself. And that seems to be one of the core lessons that we are all trying to learn, especially in our 20s and beyond. We're going to examine the things in my experiences kind of like a case study, which will help me be a bit more objective when talking about this friendship that I had and turn those red flags into lessons that we can learn from. This situation was pretty difficult to deal with and took a lot of personal work and reflection, but when I got tired of essentially gaslighting myself about the psychological warfare that my friend was kind of waging on me, I went to the internet and was pretty gagged by a couple of these articles and discussions that I found online for this friendship that I want to discuss. I want to give her anonymity. I want to keep her anonymous. So for the sake of this discussion, we're going to refer to this friend as Karen. So the first sign of a toxic friend or a friend that might not be ready or willing to see you grow, the first example is backhanded compliments. You can recognize backhanded compliments as a compliment wrapped in an insult. Some of the issue though came in when I started making vlogs. At the time, The videos of mine that were becoming more popular were my talking videos and videos where I'm talking on the camera like this. But I am also really passionate about vlogging. And so when I started making vlogs, she kind of, they weren't doing as well. And she would kind of make underhanded comments about my vlogs. And mind you, at this time, she hasn't like posted or like created anything, but she started having a lot to say about my own creation process. And I'm paraphrasing here, but she made a comment one time saying how she wanted to make meaningful content because she wants to do like content around books and things like that. And she was saying that she didn't want to just like do like vlogs, which ultimately, like, time later I find out that she does want to vlog, but she just didn't want to vlog like me. And in that moment in conversation, I did feel a little like hurt and slighted by her saying that, but rather than put myself in the position to be at odds with her, which these things kept feeling like attempts for that, rather than making myself in opposition to her, I took that as an opportunity to just affirm myself and show love to myself and express that like vlogging and video creation has been something that's been really awesome for me, because it's been like a documentation of where I am in my life at that time, and they're little glimpses into moments of things that I don't want to forget in my 20s, big moments, little moments, and all of that. And I'm just proud of myself for being able to do that. And even me saying that, she had a really almost like disgusted look on her face, but out of her mouth, she just like agreed and was like, yeah, that's really awesome. But like her face and her body language said something different. So that was strange to me. The person wants to appear supportive, but they're actually undermining your success. In the article, one of the red flags that they listed on here was they diminish you while copying your characteristics, style, or work. Or in simple terms, constant comparison. The article says, an ironic trait of those susceptible to comparison is that they often copy the very things they critique about their targets. This was something that actually would take me a longer time to notice and to put into perspective. And actually, because I do frequently like assume the best of everyone, I didn't really notice this as a red flag, and it actually took people around me to point this out. Like multiple people around me had to point this out in order for me to notice it. But all right, I'm gonna give you my examples. In the beginning of my friendship with Karen, I cut all of my hair off and dyed it blonde. Within a week, Karen, for the first time ever, decided to dye her hair blue. That didn't seem strange to me. In fact, I was really excited when she told me that she wanted to dye her hair, and I even helped her with figuring out how to do it. A few years ago, I started dating a guy. This guy was the performative male final boss, if you will. And he was a Nigerian guy who was really into like art and photography and stuff like that. When I started dating this guy, Karen, for context, was married. She is a queer woman who was married, and told me shortly after, when I started dating this guy, that she was exploring polyamory and that she wanted to start dating guys too, which was a little bit of a shock to me because I thought she was a lesbian. But everyone has the room to grow, and I'm a queer person who dates everyone, or dates multiple genders and things like that. So I was like, sure, okay, girl, period. But then she said something that was really strange when she did start dating a guy, which was like, oh, I'm dating an artsy guy too. And I was like, okay. And soon I would come to find out that this was also a Nigerian guy who was into art and photography. And again, that did not immediately ruffle my feathers or anything like that, because personally I feel like if you cast a stone in any direction, you might hit a Nigerian guy who's into art and photography. So that didn't really cast me as strange, especially because she was living in Texas and I was living in DC, two places where art-loving Nigerians are. Hey, whatever. But it was just kind of the way that she said it, which was like, now we're both doing the same thing. And I didn't really see it like that, but sure. That year, I tell her that I'm interested in exploring modeling. At the time, I was thinking about exploring modeling and even online social media creation. And she told me that she wanted to do modeling as well. And she also wanted to explore social media creation. I did it for a little bit and then I kind of fell off from it. And then once I stopped, she stopped too. The same year, I decide that I've always wanted to learn an instrument, so that same year I decided to buy a bass guitar and an amp and start teaching myself how to play my favorite songs on the bass. Within the same month, she buys an electric guitar and starts deciding to try to teach herself the guitar as well. Again, these are things that I felt very open to because I get that when you have friends, you guys a lot of times bond over liking the same things, and I don't know, I saw it as a really good bonding opportunity for us to kind of learn and grow together. All right, so the next point is isolation or isolating you. This manifests a lot of times in the form of sabotaging your other relationships, maybe your other friendships, or even sabotaging your romantic partnerships, or trying to kind of create or sow some discord there. And if I'm reading it verbatim, it says isolating you, sabotaging your relationships or your romantic relationship by making you feel guilty for spending time with others. Karen was someone who was very entitled to me and my energy and my time and things like that, and I often would not be able to have any experiences by myself without her trying to guilt trip me into including her. So when we first became friends, I was in an abusive relationship, and I thankfully was able to flee and escape that relationship. But after doing that, I moved to DC and she stayed living in Texas. I didn't date for a while because I was going through my own personal journey of growth and reestablishing love for myself and all the things, all the stages of healing that you have to go through after a romantic heartbreak that involves abuse or domestic violence. So when I was in DC, maybe after about a year of living in DC, I met someone, and it was really exciting for me at the time. I met the performative male final boss that I mentioned in the previous points, and Karen started being really weird and would get noticeably upset when I wouldn't be able to talk to her on the phone as much because I was talking on the phone with this person that I had started dating. And don't get me wrong, we still talked pretty frequently, and sometimes I would even get off the phone with the guy that I was seeing to pick up the phone and talk to her if I felt like we hadn't, caught up in a few days or something like that. And for context, I'm not someone who puts like a hierarchy on my relationships, so this wasn't a case where the girl gets with a guy and then ignores all of her friends. I definitely am like 1000% a girl's girl, and I don't believe in putting your romantic relationships over your platonic ones, and even made a point to communicate once I started getting serious with that guy, I made a point to communicate to him and to her that I still wanted to prioritize deepening my friendships and my feelings of community. So yeah, I wanted to make it really clear to the guy and to Karen that even though I was getting into serious partnership and taking that relationship more seriously, that didn't mean that I wanted to just isolate or neglect the relationship that I had already cultivated with her. I also recognized, I tried to hold space for the fact that she was being a little strange or icing me out a little bit, because we had had a lot of conversations that year about decentering men. We had had a lot of conversations around just healing our relationship to men and the men around us. So I understood if me starting to get into a romantic partnership, especially because we're two queer women, I understood that getting into partnership with a man might bring up some feelings within her, and I wanted to just hold space for that and not judge her too harshly for it. There wasn't really a lot of space for us to talk about what was going on, because when I tried to check in with her and see if everything was okay, I wanted to give her the space to just speak for herself. She wasn't really receptive to talking to me about it, and she insisted that everything was okay and there was nothing to talk about. So I didn't press further, and I just let it go. And a long time would pass before she ended up telling me that she did have some feelings of jealousy, but she just felt jealous that I was spending my time more with another person. Hold on to that, because it's going to come right back around a second time. So some years pass, and I'm no longer in the relationship with the performative male final boss, but I enter into partnership with the woman that I'm currently dating. That animosity that she would have for my previous male partner would rear its ugly head again. If you're a watcher of my channel, you know that I decided to move back to Texas this year after living in DC for a few years, and my partner Io, she moved with me. When we got to Texas, we had a lot of high hopes for building our community, because community building is something that has been at the forefront of both of our minds, and I was really excited to integrate my partner into community with Karen and with her partner, because me and her partner were cool, and it just didn't unfold in the way that I really hoped it would, because when we got there, Karen was being objectively pretty mean to my partner. When we would get in settings together, like when we would get in common spaces together, Karen would make my partner feel very isolated. Sometimes she would straight up ignore her. And even like when my partner would say things or share things, she would always try to like oppose what she was saying or say something that was the opposite. It was just really strange behavior. And it wasn't something that I initially picked up on because she would often do these things when I wasn't around, or if we were in big group settings where I was preoccupied talking to other people. It would put me in the position to where I would have to talk to Karen about these things after the fact and not in the moment. And in that time, she would often make a lot of excuses and say that like, oh, she's just maybe it's just a difference in our personalities. I do think that oftentimes when people are being malicious though, that they hide under the guise of that's just their personality, or maybe we're just not getting it or like getting their jokes. But I do think that most of the time we know when people are being mean and when people are not being mean, especially if there's multiple occasions or interactions of you being like strange. This isolating behavior also manifested in just her being generally hostile towards anybody that I would bring around for my personal life. So when I would introduce her to any of my other friends or just anybody from my life, she either was incredibly disinterested in getting to know them or kind of mean and shady towards them. The next point in the article, in terms of red flags to watch out for, says that minimizing success is a big trait of that, and that's something that unfortunately I witnessed a lot from her in the last year. While all of these other things are happening, I decided that I actually want to start really taking YouTube seriously. I just start pursuing creation online and my YouTube journey. Around that same time, Karen tells me that she is really interested in starting a book talk, which then evolved into her saying that she also wanted to do YouTube, which I don't own YouTube or anything like that, so I didn't see that as intimidating or anything like that. I was actually really excited to kind of have like a accountability partner to just like embark on this journey with. And I'm like super supportive and eager and wanting to hear about her creation journey and process. And I also try to share like a lot of my own process and journey and like ideas that I was thinking about in terms of creating. And she just seemed to be really like disinterested in like what I had going on or like anything that was pertaining to like me and my creation process. Even sometimes when I'd be talking to her on the phone, she would just be like scrolling on Instagram like while we were talking and like not really paying attention to like much of what I'm saying. When I started my YouTube journey, my videos weren't getting like much traction, or I wasn't getting a whole lot of attention on my channel, but I was really proud of myself because it wasn't exactly about that for me. It was the fact that I could stay consistent at something that I was passionate about, and I was just really happy to be really putting myself out there and feeling proud of the things that I was creating, because before YouTube I didn't really have a lot of experience with video making or editing or anything like that. And so I'm sharing that with her, and she was just notably unenthusiastic. She'd never liked or like engaged or even commented on any of my videos until, you guessed it, the first time she ever commented on any of my videos were when I first started having my first like viral videos. And when I started getting more attention on my channel, she would take that opportunity to then comment on the video. And then once I started getting like attention, like a couple thousand subscribers and things like that onto my channel, that's when she was just notably more enthusiastic about my video creation process. And even then, she still really wasn't excited to hear about how I was doing and how I was feeling in the process. She more so just wanted to attach herself onto what I was doing by wanting to do. She started suggesting that we do like co-editing sessions, or maybe we get together and like script and edit videos together, which I was still very open to. And I didn't hold it against her that she was not super enthusiastic about my channel in the beginning, because I wanted to give her the grace and the benefit of the doubt of just like being on her own journey and her own path of healing the aspect of you that has a fear of being seen, a fear of being perceived. Like, creation online is a really difficult process, and it's kind of hard to put yourself out there and be vulnerable. So I just assumed that she was working through her own relationship with that, and maybe didn't want to be like preoccupied with my journey at the same time. So I was open to still hanging out with her and doing those like co-creation sessions, which we did do a few times. Tension between us grew more and more as my YouTube channel began to grow, and I noticed that it was becoming harder and harder for her to celebrate with me when I had any sort of wins, when I hit personal milestones like 10,000 subscribers. So it was becoming really hard for her to acknowledge, even talk about my YouTube channel with me, acknowledge it, because I don't know really why at the time, actually. And it is important to note that like at the time, her channel and like her creation process wasn't going as well, but I didn't look at it like that, and I just recognized that we're on different timelines. Like, this is just my time right now, and it can also be your time if you put the effort and work in. Like, I didn't see it as like this competition or anything like that, so I was really feeling a little disoriented by her lack of willingness to celebrate me, because if we were in the opposite position, I would be more than happy to celebrate her channel was going up, or if she's hitting her own personal milestones that she wants to hit. I've always been incredibly happy for her. But after a while, it became hard to even hang out, because if there was anything good that was going on with me, it would be like this tense air. And it got to a point where I found myself like shrinking around this person. I started realizing that I was like shrinking myself around this person, and every time I would hit milestones or have good things happen in my life, I would kind of avoid talking to her about them because I didn't want there to be any further tension in our relationship. I stopped talking about my YouTube channel altogether, and it felt really sad that I couldn't celebrate any of my wins with this person who was supposed to be my best friend, because every time I did, I would either get dead silence, maybe like a congratulations, or just like some sort of underhanded compliment that I would have to brace myself for. And after a while, like these projections of whatever she was feeling in her head onto me were becoming exhausting and a little offensive. The next point is sabotage. Now, I want to sabotage and manifest it a lot in our friendship, and I cannot take all the time in this video here to talk about them, but I'm just going to list a couple of things. I want to use the example that you guys might be familiar with, which was my decision to leave the United States. If you haven't noticed, I'm in Europe, and I made the decision. For a long time, I've wanted to move out of the US and travel full time, at least for a little bit in my 20s. That's something that I've always wanted to do, and I also talked to Karen about wanting to do, because that's something that she said she wanted to do as well. If you are a frequent flyer of this channel, then you know that it was really difficult for me to leave the United States, and it was kind of a hasty decision. So, her being my alleged best friend, I decided to share that with her and tell her about the fact that I was planning on maybe moving to Spain and then like traveling full time in that process. And lo and behold, what did she say? She wanted to move to Spain too. She tells me that her and her partner are actually also thinking about moving to Spain, and I say, wow, that's great. Sure, let's talk about it then. And I told her what my timeline was, and that I was actually thinking about moving really, really soon. And that was much sooner than what she was hoping to move, but she said that she wanted to move soon as well, like within the next year. So I said, well, why don't we get together and meet about the different places that we want to go and see if some of those places overlap, so then we could just do it together, or like so we could like meet up or something like that. Like, we're friends. And so we would meet up weekly for Sunday dinners. And I decided to host a dinner at my house that weekend, and I cooked, and I was really excited. So I made like a PowerPoint presentation on my laptop about like the different cities that me and my partner were interested in going. And she told me that she would come with her own like ideas, and her partner would, you know, collaborate, and then we would share and have a meal. It was going to be really great. She comes to the like hangout at my house and did not do anything in terms of looking up cities or even just making a list of places that were interesting to her. And instead of just saying that, she got really, really like aggressive towards her partner and like blamed the fact that she did not have any cities or anything like that on her partner. I want to now like leap back to the conversation of sabotage, because I didn't feel like she was sabotaging my plans to leave the country simply because she did not come prepared to this one meeting. What she began to do was, every time we talk, force me into conversations with her about entertaining her ideas of leaving to also move to Spain like I was doing, except for the fact that I was leaving in a month and she was wanting to leave hypothetically in like a year, and had made no plans to leave, had not done anything besides like think about leaving. But all of our conversations had to be oriented around what she's doing to prepare to possibly leave the United States. I just did not have the space with my best friend to talk about the chaotic journey that was moving. And in this time, I had also gotten into a really bad car accident, and she was just really uninvolved in anything that was going on in my personal life, even though I was having such huge transformations and things happening in my personal life. My YouTube is growing. I'm leaving the country literally in a month, and she is like forgetting every single time I'm telling her like the date I'm leaving. She never can remember the date I'm leaving. She would like offer to help me after the car accident because my car got totaled. Her and her partner had 2 cars, so she offered to let us use one of the cars and then never got back to us about it. We asked her for a ride one time somewhere and she like didn't want to give us a ride. When I was like moving out of my apartment, I like, you know, she didn't want to help us move out of the apartment. We asked her if she could like ask around for like anybody else to help, and she was just like, oh, I don't know. And then when it came to the actual plans of like us leaving the country, at this point I didn't really want any of her tangible help. I just wanted her to be like a listening ear or just like supportive or communicating that she was happy for me. And I didn't get any of that from her as a friend. She only was interested in talking about herself and her own musings about potentially doing something that I'm actively doing like at the moment. And that was distasteful, man. And after a while, like all of these things combined was just becoming too much for me to handle, honestly. The backhanded compliments, the over-the-top criticisms of people around her, the meanness to my partners, demanding that I spend copious amounts of time with her when, also for reference, we were hanging out every week. There was just no pleasing this person. And after a while, it made me start questioning what type of person and what type of friend that I was. And I learned some really important lessons from that experience that I want to put in the next portion of this video. So one of the main lessons that I realized that I had to relearn in this friendship was releasing other people's projections that they are projecting onto me, releasing other people's perceived negative beliefs about me, and letting them feel like if they have any sort of feelings about what I'm doing in my personal life or what that means or anything like that, just letting them. In this time period where we're all supposed to be constantly comparing ourselves with others, it's important to realize that like you don't have to internalize anybody else's opinions about you. That's something that I'm learning by being on YouTube. That's something that I was learning in that friendship. That's something that I've learned in the last couple of years of dealing with a lot of people like Karen's. Of course, it's good to be receptive to what other people say and apply that into your life, but if you know that that isn't true, toss it out the window. Toss it out the window, because sometimes people are just having their own personal self-perceptions and like projecting that onto you because that's easier than dealing with whatever it is that they're going through in their personal lives. It sucks when you find yourself in the position being the person like on the receiving end of that behavior, but I want to communicate that if you are receiving other people projecting negative thoughts and ideas onto you, you should never allow yourself to be devalued in your own community. I also wanted to talk about really quickly some reasons that people might not be showing up for you, just so maybe you can like separate their behaviors from your own internalized perceptions of self-worth or value, right? So this is from not Psychology Now, but it's from verywellmind.com, and I'm just going to list out some of the reasons that I noticed and some reasons that I also witnessed in the past. So in this specific situation, one of the things that they pointed out as reasons that I think what was going on in my own friendship was just a fear of change. And it says that some friends might feel threatened by your growth and change. If you're leveling up in life, getting a promotion, starting a new relationship, or pursuing new interests, they may feel left behind and try to hold you back to keep things as they were. And I do think that this is a comfort tactic, especially to people who are not used to like a lot of change in their life. And I don't demonize her for this. I don't think that you should demonize your old friends or your old circles or spaces for this, but it is important to understand and protect yourself from that sort of energy. A lack of empathy. This person may just lack empathy and not understand how their actions are affecting you. Insecurity. Your accomplishments can make the person feel insecure about where they're at in life. They may sabotage you to make themselves feel or look better. Competition. The person may feel like they are in direct competition for some reason, even if both of you are doing completely different things. Instead of being happy for your wins, they feel the need to beat you down or be better than you. Resentment. If there's any unresolved tension or resentment in the friendship, whether from past conflicts, misunderstandings, or unspoken issues, the person may act out in subtle ways. Instead of addressing it directly, they may sabotage you as a passive-aggressive way of expressing their frustrations. And the last 2 points were envy and jealousy. Envy is also a possibility. Your friend may wish that they were like you or desire what you have. And then in the same article, it says jealousy. A friend may sabotage you due to jealousy if they're not happy with their own lives, as they may want someone to be as miserable as them. That's a bit of loaded language. And I don't think that I would say that myself. But what I do want to say, you aren't wrong and you're not stupid, or like nothing is wrong with you for having the courage to grow and try on new things in this life. And friends that actually support you will support you, and you won't have to worry about what those friends' intentions are. I had the pleasure of catching up with a longtime friend of mine, Tanya. Hey girl, I know you're watching this. Before I left the country, and I was almost, I'm not gonna lie, like after hanging out with her, I cried because like it was just so refreshing to be able to catch up and talk to someone who was genuinely interested in the things that I had going on in my life. It was just so good to be able to have someone like inquire about me and like care about the things that I had going on and tell me about her life and not feel like I had to mask or hide any of my accomplishments. And I knew that she would genuinely be happy for me when I shared these things with her. I felt myself in the beginning feeling a little nervous even telling her about my YouTube channel, and she was like wondering what the issue was, because I realized that I had been like holding back the wins and the good things happening in my life from this person in my community because I was afraid of backlash. I don't have many friends, but I do have a small circle of really solid individuals in my life that we have been friends for much longer, and I'm really grateful for them. Because of my lifestyle of moving around all the time, I often don't get to have like, you know, a huge group of friends, but I'm very grateful for the relationships that I've been able to cultivate at this point in my life. And I hope to make more. Like I'm in my mid-20s, so I'm really excited as I travel and meet new people to be able to meet friends who I can grow and thrive alongside. Sometimes in order to cultivate those relationships and those connections, you have to be patient. Everybody won't be for you, and that's okay. It's okay to be alone for a while, and I recognize that that can be lonely, but it is such an inherent valuable trait to be able to spend time by yourself and value your own company and not be afraid of being alone or by yourself when maybe having to let go of old connections or friendships or even getting rid of like a friend group. If you're in a space right now to where you have no real friends or maybe only a few, I would take the time and use this as an opportunity to work on yourself and work on being as secure of a person as possible. Maybe take the time to work on your own hobbies and maybe develop some things personally about yourself, so when you get around other people, you don't end up being like a Karen. You know, you don't end up being like a person who then projects the ways that they're lacking in their own life onto the people around them, and you can actually learn to be a good friend and a good person and someone who's excited for other people just as you would want them to be excited for you. I hope that whoever hears this is bold enough to be yourself and stay true to that despite whatever outside narratives are thrown at you. I'm sure the girl that I talked about in this video would have her own version of the story, and quite frankly, I don't care, because I know that in that friendship, my intentions were always pure. I know that I was always like trying my best to be like a genuine and loving friend to her, and I always do that in all of my connections. So I don't really have a whole lot of like, I just don't have a lot of feelings of regret or just like wondering about anything in that relationship, because I know that I showed up as myself genuinely the entire time. And in my opinion, that's what makes a true girl's girl, being able to root for other people just as much as you would want them to root for you, period. So that's pretty much most of the things that I have today. If you've been feeling this way, I know it's really hard to accept the fact that your friend might not be your friend. So I do want to say that you're not crazy. And if things feel off, and if you made it to the end of this video and some of this sounded too familiar, don't forget to like this video. Let me know in the comments if you've had some similar experiences to me so I don't feel so crazy. And let me know if you're dealing with something like this right now. Thank you so much to the people who do support this channel. I also wanted to say at the end that I think that you are a big reason why I have been able to understand myself as like a friend, understand myself as a person, and through this hard time of like ending a long-term friendship, the positive affirmations that I've received in the comments of my videos, I didn't have to prove myself to get the kindness and love and support from the people on this YouTube channel. That has been so healing and so affirming and reminding me of my own good abilities even, and I want to thank you for that, and I hope that this video resonated with you. It's been really cathartic for me. My name is Cleopatra, and that is what was on my mind today. Ciao.